Welcome to the Vision Programme. My name is Alan, part of the Vision Programme, and with me today I have Shelden Carroll. You're very welcome, Shelden.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, but when we're just as we start now, let's just hand it over to Lord in prayer. Lord, just be with us now as we have a chat together, Shelden and myself, and just whatever you want to say through our conversation, Lord, that'll be a real time of maybe inspiration for those out there who are listening to this programme. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Amen.
So, Shelden, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm here in Ireland. I'm originally from South Africa. What brought me here initially about, nearly 20 years ago now at this point.
So you've been here 20 years?
No, I haven't been here 20 years, but I came over in 2001.
Okay.
I spent 14 years here and had 2 children. And subsequently then went back to South Africa for about 4 years with the wife who was insistent of going back to South Africa. She wanted to grow the children up with the sunshine and the like.
Right.
And
that must have been tough.
Yeah, it was tough because I had done a lot of groundwork to build. I had a life here. I built friends. I had a lot of friendships which. Subsequently now, trying to work those, rekindle those friendships, it's difficult, when you lose touch. Not even, even you can use Facebook and all of that. It doesn't really
Same.
It doesn't really add as much volume to meeting up with somebody
face to face.
Exactly. I mean, it's just you don't get that same amount of value as you would, But having said that, I decided, things went very pear-shaped. I didn't see it coming, although the signs were there.
What signs were these?
Well, I was involved. I was in a very toxic relationship, one that I didn't really understand at the time. Neither. I mean, there were signs here as well. I mean, in terms of the domestic violence. Now, a lot of times when we talk about domestic violence, a lot of people talk about, physical. It's an immediate thing that people refer to, which isn't always the case. There's a lot of different aspects to domestic violence that we don't tend to consider. And we're talking about stuff like gaslighting. There's various different terms, but a lot of the time, when I would try to achieve something, I would be put down. And that's, and over time, I didn't realize, but over time that really, it did a lot of damage to my self-esteem, my self-worth, my self-confidence. I didn't really know who I was. So essentially, which is the reason why I came back, ultimately, because I needed that familiarity.
In what? What were you? What kind of?
Well, I needed the familiarity of. I mean, essentially, I was 20 when I came over, Alan.
Okay.
And my adult life essentially started here in Ireland. Even though I grew up in South Africa, having spent 14 years here and having had my children born here, it was a tie, and I felt that. If I was going to, and I needed to do a lot of healing, and if I was going to do healing to the degree and to the pace that I wanted to do the healing process for myself, I needed to have a certain amount of familiarity, almost as a comfort,
Well, isolation is the big killer, and having people around you to journey with you through some of that would be very helpful.
Yeah, but essentially though, I started this healing process on, still a lot of the time I'm on my own, I meet up with friends the odd time that I have, that I've kept over the duration of being here. Having lived here, and then obviously, when I was back home, I still kept in contact with a good few of my friends here in Ireland. And
but it sounds as if that wasn't the reason that you came back for.
No, but you see,
what was the thing that you brought you back to Ireland? The thing that you felt would help heal you that wasn't in South Africa, that was in Ireland? What was that nugget or that thing that you felt, or was it getting away? Was it, what were the things in that you felt, this will help to bring healing to my sense of being put down and things like that?
Well, it's funny that you should ask that question, because essentially I didn't really have the choice at the end of the day.
Okay.
I was living with my parents. I gave up a job 6 months prior. I was looking for still, having gone into a clinic for major depression, coming out of that, and then staying with my parents looking for work, constantly looking for work. I mean, application after application. And it just got to a stage where I was building up so much debt with my father that I said, okay, he even said, look, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go to Ireland. You're more likely to get a job in Ireland doing what you're doing and what you've been doing than you would if you stay here. So he put me on the ticket and said, good luck.
Wow.
But and within a couple of weeks,
but you did it.
It didn't take me long, because in a couple of weeks I applied to work where I'm working now, and back in care work. And it's quite funny that, well, not funny, but it's incredible how healing really happens when you take the focus off yourself. And you're building the relationships with the residents that I have working in the home where I'm working has been phenomenal, and the response and the feedback that I get from the residents has catapulted my self-esteem and self-worth to another level that I never even experienced prior to working in this field. And it's different, because when I first started doing this work, I did it for that reason. I needed approval. Whereas, when I left South Africa, I had gotten to the point where, to heck with everybody. I was adamant, I'm gonna start a new journey, look at different things, do different things. But I already started to accept myself prior to leaving South Africa, and who I was, or who I wanted to be, at least, not knowing really actually who I was, as a result of the experience. But I came to the knowledge that I didn't need anybody's acceptance.
Right. And you had been looking for it in the past.
My whole life. My whole life I've been looking for people's acceptance, people's approval was always a big thing for me. And I still kind of wonder why that was. And I suppose, when you don't ascertain certain when you don't reach certain goals as a youngster, specifically in school, I wasn't very academic, put it that way. But I've recently discovered other skills. But and that's a lot of issues. In today's society, there's still a lot of pressure on school kids when it comes to doing a curriculum that mightn't suit them.
It's a big mechanism, it's a big machine, the whole education system, and sometimes it's hard for it to tailor to the individual, to tailor to people who think slightly outside the box in a good way.
Correct.
And they just do the system. And so therefore when we don't fit the system, it is hard for both sides, both the school and the pupil, in that they don't, and maybe it is a hard thing, and I don't know whether we'll ever get to resolve that whole thing of individual math, how we can individualize school education in a way that is encouraging to the pupil to develop their skills more. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I know that there are a couple of Norwegian countries that are doing tremendous work in this field, in this area, and what they're doing is quite incredible. They are definitely thinking outside the box.
The whole thing of homework was an interesting one. I read this recently there, that one of the Norwegian countries that actually gave up doing homework at night, the pupils then didn't get negative to education, and therefore they thrived. Where when you go home and it's a trudge to kind of do your homework, they kind of got the whole negativity to learning. And I think that's what that key thing was in that response.
But that's the basis of life. I mean, in everything.
Yeah.
If every single experience, right, even though it might be perceived negative at the time, if we have a different perception on it being, well, this might seem like a negative experience right now, but this is for my benefit.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at different angles that way, it takes away, it really changes our perception. It changes the way we do things. It changes the way we, maybe we relate to other people as well.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, for myself, I just come to the conclusion that it's not always possible, but I'm certainly going to make an effort to ensure that everybody that meets me has a good experience of me.
Oh,
and and to do that, I need to have a servant heart, and I need to always remain humble at the same time.
Right, that sounds good. What's your first song?
My first song is "Love Will Tear Us Apart" by Joy Division.
And why did you choose that?
I chose it because, in actual fact, I was sitting. It was a kind of, it's one of my favorite songs of all time, and I was sitting in the top of an internet cafe in the Bleeding Horse on Camden Street, and it just came over the radio. It was one of the first songs that I was listening to when I first got here to Ireland, and I needed the internet at the time. The internet was scarce back then. You're not talking quite some time ago, but you need to go to internet cafes and whatever. And I just heard the song, and subsequently, as it would happen, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's why I chose the song.
Let's hear this song. Will tear us apart. So that sums up there, Shelden, what has happened in your past in many ways, hasn't it? And then you felt low, you felt downed, you felt put down and things like that. So there now, Shelden, back to Ireland, got the ticket back to Ireland again, trying to find new purpose, new ways of looking at life, maybe, is it? Or
I kind of really started that before I got here, though, because when I was in the clinic, major depression, major depression, and I suffered a lot after I got out of the clinic. But the main thing that I picked up on in the clinic that has really, it is pushed my growth like no tomorrow, not only in terms of healing, but just in terms of discovering who I am, and that is expression. Now what I mean by that is, we as people, we have various different ways in which we love to express ourselves. Now, some people may call it art, some people may not. But whatever way that we do express ourselves, it's communication at the end of the day. So what I set out to do, I had already, I was already into photography, into a bit of digital artwork, and also and also poetry. Poetry. Well, having said that, poetry became a thing after being in there. Because a lot of the times the therapist there would say, write your feelings down, write what you're thinking about, write. And I just started writing, and out of the blue, I wasn't even surprising myself. I was like, where's this coming from? It's like, this is incredible. And self affirmation. I was already starting. I didn't realize at the time, but I was already starting to affirm myself in how I perceived the things that I was doing.
Yeah. Is it a little bit like kind of finding your voice of some form or expression?
No, I think it's more than that.
Right.
A lot of the times when you experience a traumatic. When you've gone through a traumatic experience in life, for lack of a better word, shell-shocked. You know, somebody once said to me, or I came across a quote once that kind of really just sums it up, really, because, you know, it's like we're more than stars. You know, we're like supernovas bursting open.
Okay.
When we look back at the bursting part of our journey, right, then in the moment we might have thought we were dying, but in actual fact we're opening up. So when we look back, that painful experience has helped us and brought us to a position of more beauty within ourselves than we would ever have had if we hadn't gone through that experience.
I get you. Yeah.
So,
but sometimes that is a huge mind shift.
Yes, absolutely.
Around from it's dreadful to saying this is something that will make me better, or you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Look, I mean, it has taken me a good part of 8 months to get to where this is. I used to, about 3 months after the clinic, still living with my parents, 38 years of age, relying on them for food, relying on them for shelter, it's not an easy thing to experience at that, at the prime age of 38, nearly 40, living with your folks. But there was, they were there for me, and as difficult as it was living with them and them for me, for them too, being under their roof. They've been on their own for a very long time. My brother out the house, my sister out the house, and then the black sheep in inverted commas, but you're
kind of a bit demoralising.
No, of course, I'm only. No,
but it is. No, it is. It's hard.
It is.
Anyone in that situation would find that hard.
So, so having said that, though, it is a process. It's not something that has happened overnight. There are a lot of people, however, are quite surprised at how quickly I have grown. But there are 2 key points to that.
Okay.
That are vitally important, I think, is
first. So you've talked about expression, right?
Yeah.
It's been very important now.
Yeah, well, expression is just really about self. It's about trying to understand or get to know a new you.
The new you.
Right?
Okay.
But more importantly, I think before you even reach that point, you have to get to a point of acceptance. If we don't accept whatever we are facing with, whatever it is.
So what did you have to accept?
Well,
just to kind of explain that.
I had to accept the fact that I'm separate from my children. My children are living in Cape Town at the age of 8 and 6. They don't have their father with them, but their father is having to come over here. And, having gone through what I've gone through with their mother, it was a very difficult. It has taken me a long, long time to accept the fact that right now I can do nothing about my circumstances in terms of being there for them and being a physical presence in their life. I understand, and I've come to accept too, that I still, as a father, it's my responsibility to provide for them. And if that means I have to get out the house and travel 9,000 kilometers, miles, whatever it is, so that I can put food over their table and a roof over their head, then that's what I have to do. And it's a sacrifice, and it's difficult. It's a really, really, really difficult thing to accept. But I have come to accept it, and it has provided so much peace. You can't even begin to, acceptance. If we want to experience anything in life, we need to accept the things that we became faced with. It just makes life so much easier to live.
Right. And what's the next point in that? You said 2 points in that.
And the other one, which I think is probably holds even more water, is gratitude. Gratitude, I often say, your gratitude, your altitude rather, is measured by by your gratitude. How grateful we are will determine the lengths to which we enjoy our lives.
You know, I can see, you know, we both work together in caring, and in that way, you know, you see the elderly and the ones that are kind of, what do I say, vibrant, if you put it, are very, a lot of gratitude in their life. You know, they give,
absolutely.
they give gratitude, you know, in a way that they're so thankful, and that, to me, it really stands out so much about the whole thing of gratitude.
Absolutely.
And how that, from coming from that place of gratitude, you can survive a lot.
Definitely, without a doubt.
Okay, what's your next song?
Well, my next song is a band by the name of Haven, and the title of the song is "Back in the Water," and it's kind of appropriate since you know, I'm getting out of a relationship now, and you know, essentially been out for nearly a year now, and yeah, it's back in the water.
Back in the water. Back in the water. Well, Shelden, you know, you've been through a lot, you've grown, you've had the lows, and you're heading up. I know there's things in your heart now that through this integration maybe of your highs and lows, and the, you know, the pain and the things that you've, what if I was to ask you a question, how did you grow? Where were the nuggets that helped you to grow in your times of challenges, whether it's spiritually, whether it's mentally? What are the things that you can offer to people to encourage them in that mind shift?
Get out your shell at the end of the day.
Get out of your shell.
Get out of your shell.
Get out of your shell.
At the end of the day, you know...
what should be get out of your shell? That's an interesting one. What shell?
Literally that. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're all cocooned in a way, and sometimes, you know, when we have experienced a traumatic event, it's a shell shock, as I mentioned before. But the whole idea is to discover new things, do new things. You know, if you're stagnant, you know, and you're constantly, and this is another key aspect to that really started shifting the way I thought about thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as, you know, our emotions affect the way we think, it's more often than not, it's the thinking that affects our emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I started actually contemplating that a lot. And I became very aware of what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm thinking about this now, okay, and it's awareness. It takes a lot of awareness, and it's a skill that you got to start really learning. In the much as, you know, if you're aware of what you constantly contemplate, if you're running something through over and over in your head. Now, I mean, I can give you an example of that. I mean, I belong to a couple of groups, support groups for the, you know, the type of toxic relationship that I've been through, and to hear these people say the same things over and over and over again, and it's all negative. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I can tell you right now, you're not healing. And I can tell you why you're not healing is because you're still thinking about the same things. Mm-hmm. And you're running them over and over in your head. And I've gotten to the point where I can actually almost feel people's emotions just in their words.
What about forgiveness in that? You know what I mean?
Forgiveness, look, I think, you know, obviously there's a lot of people that, you know, would assume, would say that forgiveness is not for others, it's for yourself. In the sense of, you know, you got to let it go kind of thing. But I think there is merit in saying that, you know, forgiveness is for the other person. But I would really say, I would rather go ahead and say, you know, not to hold a grudge. Mm. You know, and for me, that's enough. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people have this, because the moment you mention forgiveness, it's like, no, I can't do that. I forgive that person for what they did to me. No, I can't do that. But I think if you know, it's all about perception at the end of the day. If we change the way we see things and change the way we think, rather perceive it as not holding a grudge.
Right. Yeah.
because there's connotations to forgiveness, and a lot of people like, oh no, I can't really forgive him, but it's not having a begrudging heart that really comes down to the individual who needs to, like, for allowing forgiveness from somebody else. It's a very difficult thing for people to contemplate or to digest and do, and so for me, that's why I would much rather perceive the idea of doing that as not holding a grudge. It's a lot easier for somebody to digest from that perspective than using the term forgiveness.
Yes. It's interesting that. Yeah, I get you on that. So you've got platforms that you now, with all that's gone on in your life, that you'd like that are helpful to others and helpful to yourself. What are those platforms that you're talking about?
Well, I've got one in the pipeline that I'm working on at the moment. So I'm not too willing to share about that just yet, but it is going to be, it's a project I'm working on. I know it's going to grow, it's going to be massive, it's going to be really good. There's going to be a lot of aspects to not just people who may need healing from traumatic experiences and events in their lives, but also an opportunity for self-discovery. So that's a little project that I'm working on at the moment. But what I have running and what has been working for me tremendously is my own personal page, Shell Expressions.
Well, how do you sound?
It's SHEL-Expressions.
Okay. So if any of you are interested in connecting with Shelden,
please, you're absolutely welcome. Look, I mean, the ideas, a lot of the stuff that I've worked around, a lot of the poetry that I've written has all been about my own personal experience, and like I say, it helps to express yourself. It helps to write down things. It helps to.
The whole thing of journaling is really interesting. I've come across this quite a lot, where the whole idea of either journaling or writing poetry or expression has really helped people in so many ways, where sometimes it bangs around in our head and becomes a bigger thing
because they're not contemplating continuously all the time. If you write it down, it's almost, I don't know if it's a scientific thing or whatever, but it's almost if that thought just almost evaporates. It's almost it's gone.
On the page now.
It's on the page. It's and maybe there is some evidence in that, and then I've done other things out of my shell. I've gotten back into photography quite massively. When I first got here, I was on Dunleary Pier quite a lot. I have taken some really, there were young lads in the 15, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds, somewhere around there, jumping off the pier in Dunleary. And I was walking down there, had my camera with me, and they stopped me and they said, you wouldn't mind taking a couple of photographs. That's how I hear. I'm not going to miss up a photographic opportunity, not when it's as activity, it's active like this, it's an action shot. So I took a couple, and I've got really good feedback from that, and that's the point. I didn't realize at the time of actually how much of an impact my own creation would have for myself, in the sense of I started doing a lot of my own self-acceptance and affirmation, and having set up this, I almost didn't need to, because I was doing my work, I was putting it out there. I didn't care what people thought, and I still don't, to a degree, because at the end of the day, I like it, and if you like it, awesome, happy days, and I'm grateful for that. But if you don't, you don't, and I'm not worried about that. It's not the point. The point is to express yourself and to enjoy who I am becoming, and that's the point that I think is crucial for people who are that they need to come out the shell. They need to experience life is to do just that, and that has catapulted my growth like no tomorrow.
That's lovely. What's your next song?
My next song it's a song by Coldplay, one of my favorite bands of all time, and the song's called Adventure of a Lifetime.
Nice. So Sheldon, we've talked about getting out of your shell and expressing yourself and being kind of okay with who you are, kind of acceptance and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. So, in all this, you've written some poetry. You've tried to get something creative out there. Maybe would you like to?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. This is one that I wrote fairly recently, and I hope it resonates with as many people out there that's listening to the show. A soul of wonder. A soul that's whole has the ability to console those in need. A soul that's whole, the ability to plant a seed and watch it grow from plant to tree with a purpose to see you free of lack or need. A desire to see you live your life without regret, with an understanding that with every fire, a lesson not to burn, but to learn, to shape you and mold you like a crystal glass for someone to hold you, to share their spirit, to share their drink, giving you a new way to think, to help you whole, never to offend or be offended, for you have surrendered to a new reality of humanity that brings you peace and sanity. Then those who see you will begin to ponder, however did you become a soul of wonder.
Very insightful there. Nice. That's lovely.
Thank you.
There's a lot in it.
Thank you. Yeah.
In a good way,
Yeah.
and encouragement to all of us. I think most people go through a low time in their lives when they get knocks and things like that. And
Sure.
what do we do? And something like that. How do we, not to say embrace it, but how do we work through it? And maybe, in part, maybe it makes us. What do you think it makes? When you've gone through a lot of hard stuff, what does it make you better? Does it make?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
empathy.
It molds you. Alan, I think humanity's greatest purpose in life is to serve. I mean, if you look at the great people that we see in terms of humanity, you look at Nelson Mandela. What did he do? He served. You look at Mahatma Gandhi. He served. You look at Mother Teresa. She served. And that's just people. I'm not even talking the religious side of it. I mean, if you look at Christ, obviously he came to serve. But I just think that's our greatest purpose, and that's what we're here for. And if we can, and I think if we don't suffer, how will we ever get to the point of having empathy? Because we can't relate to that.
Yeah, I agree.
So you need to go through things in order to get to the point of being able to relate to other people, so you can have the empathy that's required in serving them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's great. Well, thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you,
Sheldon Carroll.
Thanks
and you have
really
his
appreciate
details.
it.
And thanks for listening to the program, and God bless you.
Awesome. Thank you.